Is up, everybody? I wanted to hop on real quick and just do a brief live video to talk about something that just came up in a conversation with an old friend of mine. And we were talking about content creation and approaches to content creation. And I was trying to create a framework or give him a framework that he can use to approach content creation and approach creating videos for his business. And here's what I told him. And I wanted to just share this with everybody because I think it's super important. The framework or kind of how you approach things, the way that you approach things really sets the stage for ultimately what you're going to accomplish with those things, right? So I think it's incredibly important to have a solid framework when you go into your approach to anything that you're doing, but especially as it comes to content creation, because so often what I see businesses do, and people that run successful businesses, marketing departments, et cetera, one of the things that I see happen all the time is they go out and they capture. In fact, I actually had somebody who's a professional in marketing and public relations literally say to me in a conversation that they were going to go out and film a bunch of B-roll, and I'll explain what that is. But they were going to go out and film a bunch of footage, right? B-roll is just sort of generic footage that sort of sets the scene. It's an old filmmaking term, but basically it just refers to sort of, generalized footage, right? So footage of the outside of a building, footage of products, footage of locations, footage of people walking, like those kinds of things are what you would generally call B-roll, right? And he literally said to me, this guy's a professional in content creation, in public relations, in marketing. And he said to me, we're going to go out and just film a bunch of B-roll and then I'll figure out what to do with it later. And I just kind of like had to sit there and try to keep my jaw from falling onto my desk as I heard him say this to me, because I couldn't wrap my head around the fact that somebody who was a marketing professional was actually going to do that with not with their own money, right? Not for their own content, but for a client. They were going to spend a client's money to film content that they didn't know what they were going to do with, right? That's like paying somebody to build a website for a company that doesn't exist, right? Or paying a copywriter to make brochures for a product that you may or may not ever end up manufacturing or selling, right? It's basically just wasting money. And that's why I was like so shocked and why I had trouble like kind of wrapping my head around it, and literally had to struggle to keep my jaw from just dropping all the way to my desk. Because it just like the thought that went through my mind was like, oh my God, are you trying to waste your client's money? Like, are you actively trying to waste your client's money? That's crazy. It doesn't make any sense to me. So anyway, this conversation I was just having with this old friend of mine, he's a very successful business owner. He comes from a family of entrepreneurs. And what I said to him was what I kind of say to everyone, and I'll give my sort of the analogy that I use all the time in a second. But what I said was, I'll look it up. It's on my phone. It's in a text, right? So what I said was pick a goal for the video first and then build towards that goal. In other words, think about how you want the audience to feel and then make content that creates that emotional experience for them, right? And so what that means is I think you have to think about where you're going. Not only do you have to think about where you're going, you have to really strategize and be clear about where you're going with the content you're creating before you start creating it, right? Before you start moving in that direction, right? So the analogy that I like to use is a road trip one, right? And so I'm going to date myself a little bit in this analogy, but I'm sure some of the people who see this video can relate to it. Some of you probably won't be able to, but I think I can translate it to Google Maps. But when I started driving, there was no such thing as Google Maps. We actually had to look at a road atlas to figure out how to plan routes, right? But basically, the analogy that I like to use all the time is I like to to treat content creation like a road trip, right? So what I want to do in every case when I sit down with a client and they say, we want to create some video content, my first question to them is always going to be, what's the goal? What do you want the content to accomplish? Where do you want it to take you, right? Where do you want to end up, right? I want to pick that destination first. Then once we're clear on the destination, once we've honed in on that, we've got a clear concept, we know where we're going, right? And then we've started formulating a concept to help us get us there. That's when we really dig in and start planning the route. And that's sort of, I think of that kind of in the scripting process, right? So we've gone over the big overarching development strategy. We've gone over where we want to end up with it, what we want to accomplish with this piece of content. And then we jump into really planning like how we're going to get there, right? What roads are we going to take? Are we going to drive on the interstate? Are we going to, go the scenic route? Are we going to take a detour to stop at a diner, like for lunch or whatever? I mean, I'm running wild with the analogy, but you get the point, right? You pick the route, like you pick the destination, then you plan the route. You decide how you're going to get there. You map it out methodically, right? And in if you're going to translate the analogy to sort of a more modern equivalency, when you go on Google Maps and you type in a destination, it gives you route options, right? There are a bunch of different ways to get there, and it depends on what's a priority to you. Do you want to take the fastest route? Do you want to avoid highways? Do you want to avoid toll roads? Do you care about fuel efficiency? Now they have a feature where you can select the most fuel efficient route, right? So you get options, and that's the same with content creation. There is no one right way to get to your destination, right? So it depends on what your priorities are and what's important to you as an organization. So we pick the destination, we plan the route, right? Now that we've planned the route, now is the time that we get in the car and we start driving, right? Because we know where we're going and we've planned out how to get there. Now it's time to start driving. Now it's time to get the cameras out, to put the lights up, and to start actually filming content, right? And then we deal with the post-production process after that. But that planning phase, right? The development phase of deciding where you want to go and the planning phase of picking the route are incredibly important. And if you skip those two phases, then you will end up with content that is aimless. You will end up with content that never gets you where you want to go. It's like getting in a car and doing laps around the block and ending up exactly where you started, right? You are never going to go anywhere if you don't pick a destination and then plan a route to get there methodically and clearly, and then get in the car and follow that route. So I just wanted to share that because I think it's an incredibly important part. It's so important. I just glossed right over it. I'm so excited, but it's an incredibly important part of the production process that is often overlooked. Apparently, I thought it was mostly overlooked by people who weren't professionals in the field, but it turns out that it's also overlooked by professionals in the field, right? So it's often overlooked, but it is crucial to actually getting a good result with your content. And I would be willing to bet that for a lot of the folks that I talk to, there are other reasons that this is the case, I think. But for a lot of the folks that I talk to, the single biggest reason why they have been unsatisfied with the performance of their video content for their business has been because they have not spent enough time planning, enough time in the development phase, picking the destination, and enough time in the pre-production phase, planning the route before they got in the car and started driving. They didn't put in the time in advance, and so they didn't see the result they wanted in the end, right? So put in the work to see the result, right? It's like anything else in life. Put in the work and you'll see the result. Plan ahead of time and you'll execute more efficiently more effectively, and you'll achieve your goals more quickly. That's all I got to say about that. I just wanted to jump on and share that real quick. I hope anybody and everybody who is listening, who watches this video, found that instructive. If you have more questions, always feel free to reach out to me. You can get in touch with me on any of these social channels. You can send an email, info@talixmedia.com. We'll get back to you and provide any more assistance or advice that we can. I always want to lead with value. That's my goal with doing these live videos. That's my goal with all of the content that I put out, and even the work that I do with our legendeering process is always to lead with value. So I hope you found value in that. If you have more questions, if you need more input, if you're not sure where to go next, please reach out. I'm always happy to talk about what I do because I love doing it. I hope everybody has a great rest of their Tuesday. And because today's Tuesday, if you're not watching this right now, it was live on Tuesday. But I hope you have the great rest of your day regardless. And I look forward to speaking to you soon. Take care.